You are now watching Juan Gotti Talking Sports.
Before we get into today's video, I just want to say a huge shout out to my man Brian Harden for today's video idea. As you may know, we're in the driest part of the NFL offseason. There's nothing going on. The guys are on summer vacation preparing for training camp. So like I said, if you guys have any video ideas you want me to do, put it in the description down below, because this is the perfect time for me to knock out those videos, because like I said, once again, there's not much going on at Washington headquarters. So put the videos down below in the description and I'll be sure to not only knock it out but also give you a shout out in the video. Enjoy the rest of the video. September 8th, 2019. Every Washington fan around the world was getting excited because it was opening day and we were preparing to take on the Philadelphia Eagles. Little did Washington fans know they were about to embark on one of the, if not the worst NFL seasons in franchise history. With this team not being talented enough to win games, Washington fans didn't have high expectations for this squad, but we didn't think it was going to be as bad as it was. YouTube, what's going on? It's Juan Gotti here with yet another Washington football team video, and in today's video, I'm coming on here to talk about the crazy 2-year transformation from the Washington Redskins to the Washington football team and the state of the franchise, from how we were one of the worst NFL franchises just 2 years ago to now possibly being Super Bowl contenders. So let's get straight into today's video, but before we do, make sure you guys go down below, leave a like on this video, subscribe if you're new, and turn on post notifications so you get notified when I upload a video about the NFL, in this case our Washington football team. We're so close to 3,000 subscribers. I know we can get there in no time with you guys' support, so make sure you guys hit that big red subscribe button if you haven't already. Enjoy the rest of the video. With Washington's lackluster roster and putrid coaching staff, they got off to the worst start in the NFL, as going 0-5 to start off the 2019 season. And this left owner Daniel Snyder no choice but to do what was very much long overdue, and that is to fire head coach Jay Gruden after an abysmal performance versus the New England Patriots on your home field where you lost 33-7. That left Dan Snyder no choice but to fire Jay Gruden that next morning. October 7th, 2019, at roughly 6 a.m. in the morning, it was announced that Washington has finally fired head coach Jay Gruden. After a painful 6 years with Jay Gruden with only one playoff appearance, it was finally over. With Jay Gruden's overall record being 35-49-1, it was time to move on. With Washington now coachless, they decided to make Bill Callahan, former offensive line coach, the interim head coach for the remainder of the 2019 season. Although it didn't amount to nothing, I could say that for the first time in that 2019 campaign, I seen the team play hard under head coach Bill Callahan, and that may be due to Bill Callahan's old school coaching style, but like I said, it didn't really amount to nothing because it landed Washington only having 3 wins on the season, and who knows, maybe that would have been way more than what Jay Gruden would have had if he would have stayed the head coach for the whole 2019 season. So the 2019 season, the game versus the New York Giants, the Chase Young Bowl as people like to say, the Washington football team versus the New York Giants, and it was essentially for the 2nd overall pick, and Washington very well could have won that game, but hindsight, I'm very happy we didn't, because it landed us with the 2nd overall pick. And with Washington now in the 2020 offseason, and they're coming off their worst season in franchise history, Dan Snyder sees his franchise turning for the worst. Sales were down, people weren't coming to the game, and when they were they were heavily outmatched by the away teams because they were taking over our stadium. It was essentially another home game for the away team, and as for Washington fans, could you blame us for not wanting to go see that putrid team? Dan Snyder firing Jay Gruden wasn't the worst of it. Washington fans wanted to see more, and that more was firing general manager Bruce Allen. For 10 years, Bruce Allen was just this dark cloud over the Washington's franchise, and it was just time for him to go. Dan Snyder realized that, hey man, you're here and you're making me lose business. Yes, Jay Gruden was terrible as a head coach, but you're the real problem. And Daniel Snyder, as much as we don't like him as a owner, this is the only few times where I have to applaud him for finally doing something that was supposed to have been done 5 years ago. Daniel Snyder finally fired Bruce Allen after that 2019 campaign. One thing you don't do is go into a man's pockets, mess with a man's money, because once you do that, then problems tend to happen. Bruce Allen and Dan Snyder looked like they were best friends. They would play golf together, they would obviously be around the Washington facility together. But once you start messing with a man's pocket, things have to change. And essentially what got Bruce Allen fired was not his ability to be terrible as a general manager. Us, Washington fans, we were the people that got Dan Snyder to realize, hey man, you're bad for business and I need you to get out of here as soon as possible. So Bruce Allen was fired, and it was like a celebration. It was like Christmas when this happened because we were so excited. This man has cost us so much pain, so much turmoil over the last decade that we were finally free. Now Washington can finally do it right. They can finally rebuild the right way, not only because they got rid of Jay Gruden, but they finally got rid of Bruce Allen. Washington wasted little time with their head coaching search, as Daniel Snyder, days after firing Bruce Allen, hired former Panthers head coach, two-time coach of the year, Ron Rivera. Ron Rivera was coming in with nothing, and literally nothing. He was the man that was in charge of this whole Washington rebuild, and Dan Snyder put his trust right into Ron Rivera. And Ron Rivera is a guy that knows how to do it right, and for the second few times ever, I applauded Dan Snyder for this hire. Ron Rivera, that I not already mentioned, is a two-time coach of the year winner, and he led a 15-1 Carolina Panthers team all the way to the Super Bowl. Washington was finally headed into the right direction, and although they still had a ton of work left to do, you could now see change. Ron Rivera now had to put together his coaching staff, and he put together a pretty good coaching staff, and one that includes a well-respected defensive coordinator and a good head coach who I still to this day don't know why he was fired from Oakland, JDR, Jack Del Rio. And on the offensive side of the ball, he hired a young up-and-coming guru offensive coordinator, Scott Turner, Norv Turner's son. And now you can start to see, yes, it's finally happening. We're finally starting to see a real coaching staff being established and someone that we can put our trust in. And now moving forward, after Ron Rivera put together his coaching staff, next up for the gang was free agency. And Washington had a ton of money going into that free agency, but Ron Rivera made it abundantly clear was, yeah, we'll put in a game after our starters went down. So Ron Rivera made it abundantly clear that we want to go out and get guys not only for depth, but guys that have names in this league, and we're going to sign them to one-year deals to see what they got. Hence why we signed Ronald Darby, JD McKissick to a 2-year deal, Cornelius Lucas, guys like that, Weiss Schweitzer to a 3-year deal. You know what I'm saying? We wanted to go out and get guys that were going to come in here and compete. And I love what Ron Rivera did, because literally almost everyone from that free agency class came in here and contributed for Washington in some way. Now that we're past the free agency point, next up is the NFL draft. And you remember when I said Washington played New York for that second 2nd overall pick, and it was clear who we were taking. The hometown kid, Chase Young, edge rusher from Ohio State. And with that draft pick, that set our franchise. And what I mean by that is edge rushers are the quarterback of the defense. Just how on the offensive side of the ball, once you get a quarterback, your franchise is set. That's your cornerstone. Washington, on the other hand, they decided to go with an edge rusher, and their cornerstone was Chase Young. And later in that draft, Washington decided to go with guys like Antonio Gandy Golden, Antonio Gibson, Sadiq Charles, Keith Ishmael, Cameron Curl, James Smith Williams, to name a few. And now we have a bunch of youth on this team, and not only a bunch of youth, but a bunch of ballers. Now, Washington was fresh into the rebuild, but after this draft, you can clearly see them starting to turn the page. I mean, even NFL reporters, before seeing this rookie class take the field, said Washington now has one of the best defenses in the NFL by adding Chase Young. With guys like Montez Sweat and Cole Holcomb coming off their rookie years and showing promise, you could see this defense starting to turn the page. And I didn't even already mention the Bama wall up front, Deron Payne and Jonathan Allen. Fast forwarding to Ron Rivera's first year as a head coach for the Washington football team, it got off to yet another shaky start. After Washington winning their first game versus the Philadelphia Eagles, after that it just didn't look well. It went on from Washington not having no faith in quarterback Dwayne Haskins, to him getting benched, to him to eventually getting cut later in the season. So it looked like Washington was the same old Washington football team. I mean, you had your defense doing your thing, led by rookie sensation Chase Young, but it was more so of the offense. With Dwayne Haskins being benched, the QB carousel continued as it stopped in Kyle Allen's backyard, and we got a few good games out of Kyle Allen. But once again, the QB carousel continued, because in a game versus the New York Giants later that season, Kyle Allen got hurt, where he dislocated his ankle and he was out for the year. Next up on the QB carousel was none other than Alex Smith. Yes, the same Alex Smith that just shattered his leg a year and a half prior, and he worked himself back to become an NFL player again, and obviously he did it. He played for the Washington football team after Kyle Allen went down, and he led Washington to a 5-2 record down the stretch. And obviously it was clear that he wasn't 100%. I mean, you could see the guy barely being able to move in the pocket, but he did it. He gutted it out, and he essentially won Washington the division, with the biggest win of that season being versus the undefeated Pittsburgh Steelers. You could start to see the Ron Rivera plan go into effect early. Just look back on this team just a year ago. They had no coach, they had no general manager. The team looked like it was going nowhere. The franchise was in a bad spot, and then 1 year later, they're not only in the playoffs, but their coach and their new wave of things is finally taking place. And you guys remember that QB carousel that I was talking about? Yeah, it's going to its next stop, as although Alex Smith did everything he could to win us this NFC East, he wasn't healthy, and you could clearly see that. So Ron Rivera made the choice to go with Taylor Heineke to be the starter of the playoff game versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And he did his thing. A guy that was a quarantine quarterback for the whole season came into the playoff game on the biggest stage and did his thing. Yeah, it didn't result in a win or nothing, but the guy balled out. I mean, putting his body on the line, throwing good passes. That is the best quarterback performance we've seen all year. And I'm including the Alex Smith tenure that we had for those 7 games. And that is the best I've seen that offense ran in that whole 2020 season. And it didn't result in a win or anything, but it did help Washington's young guys get experience and get their feet wet, and it allowed them to come back even more hungry the next year, and even more importantly than that, it built culture. And that's the biggest thing Ron Rivera is trying to do here, is change the culture, change it from this turmoil, change it from this toxic culture to now winning football and all about football and all about professional business and showing how a business is supposed to be ran, not just from a football standpoint, but from a corporation standpoint. To go along with the NFC East celebration, Washington now has something else to celebrate, as their standout rookie defensive end Chase Young won Defensive Rookie of the Year. Now I'm fast forwarding to the 2020 offseason, where they are basically in prime position to take over the NFC East from a team that was just 3-13 a year ago to 2 years later, a team that's in prime position to not only take over the NFC East but be real Super Bowl threats. Washington still had a bunch of holes, to believe it or not, and they decided to address those holes in free agency by going out and getting guys like William Jackson, by getting guys like Ryan Fitzpatrick, by getting guys like Curtis Samuel. This team is only getting more talented, and we went into the draft by adding guys like Jamin Davis, who we think is going to be phenomenal for us, and adding guys like De'Ami Brown, and also adding guys like Benjamin St-Juste and John Bates. We have a bunch of young talent on this team, and it's only going to be up from here for this Washington franchise. And being a Washington fan for a very long time, I never got to experience the glory days. As you guys know, I'm young, so I didn't get to witness 3 Super Bowls. And this is the first time in my lifetime where I'm finally seeing Washington's franchise turn the page, and I couldn't be more excited about that. Not only from a football player standpoint, but from a coaching standpoint, from a front office standpoint, led by none other than Jason Wright, who's doing a phenomenal job. I'm so excited to see what this team holds for the future. So yeah, man, it's me and boy Juan Gotti. I just wanted to come on here quickly to talk about the crazy 2-year transformation that Washington is going through. Let me know what you guys think about this video down below. As always, it's me and boy Juan Gotti. Like, comment, subscribe. Hell to the Washington football team. We're so close to 3,000 subscribers. With you guys' support, we can get there in no time. Hit that big red subscribe button if you haven't already. And I am starting a podcast soon. I'm getting everything in the works of it. So if you guys want to hear that podcast, let me know down below in the comment section. It's me and boy Juan Gotti. I'm out. Peace. Cross me one time, that's gonna get you pop. Get you poppin', get you driving. Slide on the one way that get you boxed on. I ain't stopping till